After being the prized acquisition in the Norman Powell-Robert Covington trade at last year's trade deadline, Keon Johnson hasn't exactly panned out so far. Today, we're going to talk about his sophomore season as a Portland Trail Blazer. In 40 games for the Portland Trail Blazers, Keon Johnson averaged 10 minutes, 4.7 points, and about a rebound and an assist per game. Per 36, those numbers are a little bit more impressive. The goals I had for Keon before the season were to get 4 assists per 36, and he passed that goal by about 1. I wanted to see if Keon Johnson could play some point guard, and from a passing standpoint, he handled that pretty well. But I also had a goal for a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio for him. He had a 1.4-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. He averaged almost 4 turnovers per 36. He was a little bit loose with the ball. I also gave him the goal of 1.5 steals per 36, and he surpassed that. And now here are his shooting numbers, which honestly are not impressive. Coming into the NBA, Keon Johnson was touted as an elite athlete that would be able to finish around the rim. That hasn't really played out so far. I had a goal of 45% on 2-pointers, and he didn't come close to passing that. He shot 39 for 97, which is 40%. We will touch upon why Keon Johnson was so inefficient from 2 as we get to the negatives. I also gave him the goal of 36% on 3-pointers, which was a shade higher than his rookie season, and he did not improve his 3-ball whatsoever, shooting 28 for 81, which is a shade under 35%, so he failed that goal as well. A true shooting percentage of 48% is not good. At this point, Keon Johnson is just not an efficient player, but let's talk about the positives. The first positive, as we talked about, is his passing. I thought Keon did a decent job making some more advanced reads than he did his rookie year. He's still quick enough to be able to get into the lane, and I thought he made solid decisions when he got there. He made a lot of solid kick-out passes and dump-off passes. Now, he did end up playing with lineups that weren't very cohesive, didn't have a good balance of shooting and shot creation. The bench lineups were a mess, especially when there were injuries, and that was the only time that Keon Johnson played, so I think he did about as good of a job as he could have orchestrating that unit. The second positive was obviously generating steals. Keon Johnson was touted as somebody with elite defensive upside when he got drafted. I don't think that's totally played out, but he did a good job pressing up on ball handlers, being able to poke and prod at the ball, and then being able to play passing lanes. The third positive for Keon was his play in transition. This bench unit in general did a good job when they were able to get out and run. We saw that with Shaedon Sharpe. We saw that at times with Trendon Watford. We saw that with Justice Winslow, him being more of a playmaker in the open court. And then I also thought that was the case for Keon Johnson as well. He was able to utilize his athleticism a little bit more when he was able to get out and run. So his transition play was definitely a positive. And Keon Johnson's fourth positive is his finishing. He shot 65% from 0 to 3 feet, which is solid. It's not great, but still, for a second-year player, it's pretty good. Now let's take a look at the negatives. The first negative is his turnovers. I'm still unsure as to what position Keon Johnson should play for the rest of his NBA career. Is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? He's probably stuck in between as a combo guard, but I think for his NBA longevity, Keon Johnson needs to find a position. And in order to play the point guard position, he has to take better care of the ball. The passing improved, but the turnovers were real rough at times this year, and that shouldn't be too surprising as he was looked at as more of a shooting guard coming into the league, but given his lack of size, I think the point guard position might be best long-term for him, and he needs to cut down on his turnovers in order to play that. The second negative is his mid-range shooting. Keon Johnson shot 26% from 3 to 10 feet and took 20% of his shots from there. That's incredibly inefficient. He also shot 23% from 10 to 16 feet and took 7% of his shots from there, and 25% from 16 feet to the three-point line, and also took 7% of his shots from there. So over a third of Keon Johnson's shots came from a range in which he shot 25% from 2. That's not good. Keon Johnson could be a decently efficient player if he just changed up his shot diet. I don't have a problem with mid-range shots. I think they can keep defenders honest and actually make it easier for players to get to the rim if a defensive player can't just turn and run and meet them there when they start to drive. But you got to be able to knock down mid-range shots at a much higher clip than that. Keon needs to work on those shots in order to shoot them, and until he gets good enough at them, he should probably stop shooting them. The third negative is his three-point shooting. This isn't a major negative, but I was hopeful that he would improve a little bit upon his rookie year, and he didn't do that whatsoever. Last season, after the trade to Portland, he shot 34.8% from three. This year, he shot 34.6%. He's got to become a knockdown three-point shooter. It's really hard for undersized guards to stick in the league if they're not able to knock down a decent amount of threes. He's not that far off, so there might still be some hope there, but he didn't show the improvement I was hoping to see from him behind the arc this season. Fourth negative is his free throw shooting. He shot 80% from the free throw line as a rookie, albeit on a small sample size. This past season, that regressed to 66%. As he develops, I could see a strength of Keon Johnson's being able to get to the free throw line, being able to beat his initial defender and utilize his athleticism to attack the body of a rim protector or a help side defender, and being able to get to the free throw line that way. Once he gets there, he needs to knock down more than 66% of his free throws. In the final negative was his defensive consistency. I was hoping that Keon would be a consistent positive on the defensive end, but his positive moments came in spurts. There's a lot of times he'd press up too far on opposing ball handlers and get beat to the rim. He's already not the most versatile defender, so he has to guard guards. He definitely had some good moments. He did a good job generating steals, but Keon Johnson needs to be consistently solid on the defensive end, and I don't think he was this year. Going into next season, Keon Johnson will be making $2.8 million a year, which is a contract that could definitely be used as salary filler to match salary in a trade. At this point, I don't think other teams value Keon Johnson much as a prospect. When Keon Johnson got traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, he was touted as a first-round pick value. He was recently a first-round pick, so therefore it's like the Blazers are getting back a first-round pick. But at this point, I don't think you can trade Keon Johnson for a first-round pick. I mean, just think about it. Which asset is more valuable to the Blazers right now? Is it Keon Johnson as a prospect, or is it the 23rd pick from the Knicks? I would definitely say the 23rd pick from the Knicks. Keon Johnson is no longer a first-round value. I don't think he has trade value as a player, but that $2.8 million could bridge the gap in order to match something for the Blazers. And then going into 2024 and 2025, he has a team option of almost $4.5 million. It'll be interesting to see if that gets picked up, whether he's on the Blazers or another team. I do think there's a chance that maybe that doesn't get picked up, but we'll have to wait and see. As far as things Keon Johnson should be focusing on this offseason, I think he needs to focus on his three-point shot. I think he needs to become a 37-38% three-point shooter consistently. I also think he needs to work on his fluidity. I think Keon Johnson plays a bit stiff, and I don't really know what the exact fix for that is, but he's a guy who can jump. People view him as athletic, but it's not fluid, and he doesn't change direction quick enough. I think his first step could get quicker. Keon Johnson to me is just more of a leaper instead of a true all-around athlete, and he needs to have that as a positive for him because he's not the greatest ball handler. He's not the greatest shooter off the dribble. He has to be able to beat guys with his quickness off the dribble in order to get to the rim and hopefully utilize that leaping ability, but he really struggles with that. I also think he could get a little stronger. That would allow him to play up a little bit more defensively, and that might allow him to use his body more on drives in order to get to the rim. There's a lot of different things that Keon Johnson could be working on. I don't even think it's a situation where he should be focusing on one or two specific things like it is with most players going into this offseason. I just think all around he needs to become a better player. My grade for Keon Johnson this season is a C-. I was expecting a little bit more from Keon this year. I was expecting him to have more consistent of a defensive impact, be a little better shooter, be a little bit better from the mid-range and therefore from two, and the turnovers did bother me a bit. With that being said, let me know what you would grade Keon Johnson's season down in that comment section below. What do you think of Keon? Does he have a future here in Portland? What is the next step for him in his development? What should he be focusing on? I always like reading what you guys think on some of the things that I say in these videos. So anyway, I appreciate that. If you hit the subscribe button, I appreciate that as well, as we finally reached 8,000 subs. It's absolutely amazing to finally be at that number. I know it's just a number, but it's pretty cool to see the 8K instead of the 7.99. So thank you to everyone who subscribed, who leaves likes on videos. It helps me out. I appreciate that as well. And with that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you tomorrow in the next player review. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.